Sea of Thieves is a game with a lot of different facets, from hunting skeletons to delivering cargo, all the way to raiding ancient tombs for their riches. There are a lot of different ways to play this game. So many, in fact, that two pirates meeting on the high seas might literally be playing it in completely different ways. And that's what makes it fun. But which one is the most fun? That's what I want to help answer today. By showing you every conceivable way to play Sea of Thieves, I want to assist you in finding your favorite playstyle. And rate them on a tier list while we're at it. From fishing to fighting, we'll be delving into every nook and cranny of this game. So ladies and gentlemen, raise your anchor, give that like button a kiss, and allow me to welcome you to Sea of Thieves. There are few better ways to start our journey than by joining the Order of Souls. Frankly, they're one of the most straightforward factions in the game because all of their voyages basically come down to a singular mission: defeat skeletons. Now, making that happen is generally not very difficult. You can use whatever weapon you like, and most of the time your opposition is not going to put up too much of a fight. In fact, sometimes they put up so little of a fight that you don't even have to be the one doing the killing. Ow! Bruh! Did the lightning kill him or did I kill him? Honestly, your guess is as good as mine. There are very few things in this game I would call difficult. Most of the time they're designed not to be hard, but to take just long enough to give other pirates a chance to steal your stuff, which in my case is exactly what happened. Whoa, okay. You know what, let's get the bad news out of the way first. Yes, sometimes when all you want to do is mind your own business, other pirates are going to rock up repping a shiny red flag and come to sink you just for the sake of sinking you. For me, who just wants to be a skeleton hunter, that obviously sucks, but thankfully there are means and ways by which we can mitigate that. If I want to get off that server without having to start over in a new session, all I gotta do is cancel my voyage and put it back up, but this time, rather than sailing to my destination, I'm going to dive to it. Granted, I will lose any treasure on my boat when I do that, but considering I just got sunk, that wasn't something I had to worry about. I still get to reap all the rewards of the high seas without getting pestered by those players. So how do I rate the Order of Souls? Whilst they do offer a bunch of different enemies with at least a semblance of mechanical variety, they all still kind of look and feel the same. Plus, there's literally no variety in the mission structure itself. You're either fighting skeletons or fighting bigger skeletons. But because it's very low commitment with a very good pay for the time invested, I'm still giving the Order of Souls a C. Though fun as it is seeing the game take out NPCs for you, what was that red flag earlier anyway? That, my friends, is our segue to the next playstyle, the Reaper's Bones. If you like hunting other players, the Reapers are going to be your favorite faction. Not only do they look unapologetically edgy, but their emissary flag has the unique ability to reveal other emissaries on the map table once you hit rank 5. So naturally, your first priority as a Reaper is hitting that rank 5 as soon as possible. At the time of recording, Reapers don't actually have any voyages to complete, but that doesn't stop you from completing other factions' voyages. Because, unlike those other losers, Reapers gain faction benefit from almost every single piece of loot, no matter which faction it belongs to. And one of the faster ways to do that is by completing world events, which you can actually spawn yourself by diving for a raid voyage for any of the other factions. Mechanically, they are still the same as any random world event you can find on the map, but since they give you fewer pieces of loot, they're not as good for emissary flag grinding as a naturally spawning event. But of course, sometimes you aren't the only Reaper trying to level up your flag. You see this? Our competitor? Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna stay as far away from him as possible. Okay, a lot of the PvP enjoyers out there are undeniably going to cringe at what I'm about to tell you, but you know what the nickname of the Reaper's Bones is? The Runner's Bones. Listen, ever since the introduction of the PvP factions Servants of the Flame and Guardians of Fortune, any illusion that Reapers exist to PvP has been utterly shattered. Yes, of course, some people still use the flag for its original PvP purpose, but the vast majority of pirates you'll meet are simply running the Reaper flag to make some of that sweet PvE money, and that's okay. I'm not gonna sit here and blame people for playing a faction in a way that the game itself promotes, only because some people hate runners. I'm just here to show you the different playstyles of Sea of Thieves, and because the Reapers are a perfect example of phenomenal risk-reward mechanics with a massive payout potential, even though they don't currently have any voyages and only a single point on the map where they can sell their loot, they are still going to the S tier. Okay, no baiting this time, let's talk about PvP. The Servants of the Flame are the PvP version of the Runner's Bones, using the Hourglass PvP system to get into combat. Just like diving for a voyage, you can dive for a PvP encounter whilst representing either them or the Guardians of Fortune, get stuck in a circle with a ship the same size as yours, spend a bunch of time sailing in circles around each other, farm some sick nasty PvP clips, probably die a lot, sink, and go again. Yes, this is probably going to be the shortest section in this video because it literally is just a sailing in circles simulator simulator for everyone who is A, PvP addicted, or B, wants to unlock some exclusive cosmetics. Now, even though I don't use the hourglass very often myself ever since unlocking the skeleton curse, I cannot deny that this playstyle is extremely focused, giving you exactly what you sign up for, on-demand PvP. But because the format is a little formulaic and the queue times to find an opponent can be a little annoying, I'm putting the Servants of the Flame and Guardians of Fortune by proxy into the A tier. And since we covered the purest form of PvP, it's only fair to also cover the purest form of PvE, Tall Tales on Safer Seas. Tall Tales are basically like story missions. You can complete a vast variety of them, leading you not only to narratives of varying quality, but also show you otherwise completely inaccessible parts of the map. You will always get a mix of puzzles, combat encounters, and set pieces that are just so gorgeous to look at. Now, if you've ever watched any of my streams on Twitch, you might have heard me talk a lot of smack about Tall Tales. Wait, let me rephrase that. You might have heard me talk a lot of smack about Tall Tales that are not the Shores of Gold. The IP crossover Tall Tales, in my opinion, simply do not hold a candle to the sense of discovery and adventure you get in the Shores of Gold, and even some of the smaller Tall Tales native to the game's own story. The new set pieces are arguably on a completely different level, but that's more of a testament to how good Rare has gotten at creating them over the years than the actual IPs they feature. I mean, hey, if you want to follow Jack Sparrow around for a little while because you enjoy the movies, you probably won't feel like you wasted your time. The spectacle of it is phenomenal. The areas they built to facilitate the stories are amazing, even though the story itself is not exactly the cream of the crop, and for fans of the franchise, it is almost a must-play. But if you want an adventure that is truly your own, a journey that is yours to take at your own pace, discovering the real Sea of Thieves, the Shores of Gold are an absolute no-brainer. In fact, our own supercut of our Shores of Gold playthrough to this day is my absolute favorite video on the channel. But you're not gonna get that sort of adventure with NPCs constantly yapping at you from all sides, and you're certainly not gonna feel like the main character when all you do is being strung along by the antics of another IP's hero. But it is not all sunshine and rainbows. The Tall Tale playstyle is the most finite when it comes to content, because at some point you will have experienced all of them. And even if you are not enough of a masochist to play through all 5 of them to finish all of your commendations, that still leaves you with a lot fewer hours in the game than if you were to adopt any of the other playstyles in this video. So because the quality of the stories varies so drastically, and since this is the most limiting way to play the game, Tall Tales only get a C tier on my list. But among those Tall Tales, the Shores of Gold are definitely S tier. Fun as they are, you know what Tall Tales aren't going to give you? Money. So let's talk about the quintessential money makers of Sea of Thieves, the Merchant Alliance. The Merchants are the perfect faction for all of you who love to make money without getting your hands dirty. This faction has access to a lineup of quests that, in my opinion, offers the greatest variety of gameplay. From catching animals to delivering cargo all the way to uncovering shipwrecks, the Merchants do a great many things and they look great doing them. The first quest is going to be the Merchant Contract, tasking you to find animals and deliver them to a Merchant Alliance representative. Conveniently, the location marked on your contract will not only spawn all the animals you need, but also house all the cages you require to actually catch them. Oh my god, I got the tutorial because I've never done this! Some people say I play this game for a living, and they would be wrong. Okay, listen, I've just never had a reason to do any of these low-level voyages since they revamped the whole quest system a while ago. Thankfully, the quests themselves didn't really change much at all, so now that I have my chickens, it was time to deliver them. Which is where you will notice that I have delivered my chickens, but the quest was still in my inventory. Yeah, so I got server merch literally as I pulled up to the outpost, which must have bugged out the quest, leaving me with just a handful of gold and an uncompleted contract. I'm showing you this because fun as this game is, it is definitely not free of bugs, so make sure you set your expectations accordingly. Anyway, that contract really didn't tell the whole story anyway, so I cancelled and replaced it with an executive merchant contract, which really is the same thing as the previous one, but more. Instead of chickens, I now had to find a pig and a variety of 3 different snakes, which are a little more difficult to handle. Snakes will absolutely spit venom in your face when you get too close, and the only way to stop them from doing that is by playing music. Even then, the effect will wear off in no time flat, causing you to have to juggle carrying and playing until you can put these things a safe distance away from you on your vessel. But don't go spending too much time playing with them, because remember the pig we had to catch? Yeah, so these things will vanish into thin air if you don't feed them every 3 to 5 business minutes. So I really hope you're not too attached to the supplies on your ship, because even just one pig is going to make a serious dent in them. Finding the 3 different types of snakes was no easy task either, and I was not done until the late hours of the day, which is when I stumbled upon another boat. Animals are extremely susceptible to cannon fire, as is your face, so I was in a bit of a rush to deliver all of them before these fellas arrived. Oh come on, it's starved already? Yeah, needless to say, the gameplay is not why I like this faction, but I'll be damned if I lose my snakes too, so I decide to toss them overboard before sending my ship off as a diversion. I mean, I can always get a new boat, but getting new snakes is a lot more annoying. Thankfully, these guys did not seem to actually want to commit to a fight, so by the time I came back to my ship, I got away with a minimal amount of damage. I also made sure to not let the pig go to waste before heading back to my original destination to replace it. Now, what do you guys think this quest would net me in profits? That's right, a whopping 728 gold pieces plus my emissary flag bonus, which at this point was level 2. Needless to say that the average pirate does not do these voyages to make money, but to complete their commendations, which are Sea of Thieves' version of in-game achievements. The next type of contract is the cargo run, once again in regular and executive variety, but this time also featuring an ashen variant. Let's start off with a basic one once again, just to see what we're dealing with. For this quest, we are going to have to deliver delicate cargo. These bottles, for example, lose value every time they take damage, and they do take damage even from more innocuous things like jumping around. Other than that, it's a fairly straightforward affair, simply delivering them to the customer detailed on the contract. The Ashen Executive Cargo Run is basically the same thing, just with more items to handle and the location always being in the Devil's Roar. So now, volcanoes are becoming another point of contention. Crates of cloth must be kept away from water to avoid losing value, though there is a fairly generous window in which you can dip in and still not ruin them. You actually have to keep them submerged for a fair few seconds to properly destroy their value. And plants require your attention in that they need to be watered, but you can also just fill your hole with seawater to about halfway up the crate to never have to worry about that. These missions pay pretty okay money when you're still new to the game and don't mind the tedium of it, but now we get to the creme de la creme of merchant quests, Lost Shipments. These are my absolute favorite merchant voyages, giving you a route for a ship that has sunk somewhere along the way. When tracking its route, you can find flotsam it left behind marked with a bunch of birds flying above it, not only giving you additional treasure, but also a clue on where to find the next bit of flotsam leading to the shipwreck itself. Though sometimes you can get really lucky and even find this on your first stop. Ooh. And we found the key. Hell yeah. So at this point, we could skip the rest of it. Yeah, this is a bit of a spoiler, but every Lost Shipment shipwreck also has a locked captain's quarter holding bonus treasure, for which you need the key to open it. Technically, you're doing the whole thing for something called a merchant manifest, which you will always get in the shipwreck. But once you have the key, you can ignore the clues and sail straight to the end of the route, around where you will always find said shipwreck, unless it bugs out and doesn't spawn. But because every clue has a chance of coming bundled with more loot, you might be missing out on a little bit of extra cash here and there. The best part about this voyage, however, is that doing just one of them can instantly level up your emissary flag to the maximum grade 5, granting you more bonus money and reputation when selling Merchant Alliance treasure. Oh yeah, speaking of emissary flag, there's one more merchant activity that you can't actually find on the captain's table, and that is a commodity run. At the start of our voyage, I decide to purchase a whole bunch of these commodities from the Merchant Alliance representative, and when checking the book right next to them, you can find out which of them will sell for maximum profit at which outpost in which region of the map. As an example, selling a commodity at Galleon's Grave with a neutral value, I ended up being paid 391 gold, plus my emissary bonus. For a sought-after commodity, however, I ended up getting 750 gold, plus my emissary bonus. Honestly, commodity runs alone could stand as their own playstyle. Sure, you need a little bit of upfront capital to buy the commodities, but especially during gold-boosting events like Golden Glory or Community Weekend, these become incredibly profitable, assuming nobody sinks you before you can sell them. Because of the ludicrous variety of the voyages, the huge money-making potential, and the absolute godlike drip you get from them, the Merchant Alliance easily ends up in the S tier. Now, you can't talk about making money without thinking of the Gold Hoarders, the de facto adventurers of Sea of Thieves. These fellas invite you to join not in the ship-sinking part of the pirate fantasy, but the one where you explore long-lost tombs to uncover great treasure. So what better way to introduce you to this faction than by doing exactly that? The most basic Gold Hoarder voyage is a simple X marks the spot, which, well, is exactly what it sounds like. Choose a big or small island, search for where the treasure is hidden, fight some skeletons along the way, and boom, you are a certified Gold Hoarder. But not all treasure is readily available. Some needs to be discovered, leading us to the riddle voyages. Those will send you once again to a big or small island depending on your preference, where a magical piece of paper will guide you towards hidden treasure. And that, my friends, is something that all the reviewers of mine certainly know I am not very good at. What do they meant by this? A road to fortune with Shovel's blade. What? This is the inner ring, no? This is northwest, yeah. Now the thing with these riddles is that they reward those who read them carefully. Me always jumping several steps ahead, I had missed the part where it described the exact location I needed to go to, instead focusing on the fluff that is merely there to sound cool. If you are any better at these voyages than me, which let's be real, you probably will be in no time flat, then you can actually make some pretty decent money with them early on. But the pinnacle of gold hoarding voyages is the Ancient Vault. I still remember the introduction of these being the first Sea of Thieves update I experienced when I first started playing the game, so I definitely have a lot of nostalgia for them. Basically, you get a magical compass that shows you the way towards a bunch of map pieces. These will be defended by a few skeletons, but eventually those pieces will show you the location of buried treasure, inside which you can find a key. And that key can either be sold or be used to open up the vault and get a ton of loot. It's like a whole ass adventure in a bottle, and that's what I love about it. What I don't love, however, is that I wasn't going to be allowed to get on that adventure in peace. Another vessel had targeted me, and even though I was putting up a pretty decent fight, the fact that I was stuck in yet another 2v1 meant that my chances for victory were rather slim. Now I could be mad about sinking here, but thankfully the pieces to the map remain in my inventory and cannot be stolen, so I didn't really lose any progress on my quest. And what also helps is when the people that sink you are actually kind of chill. I will take this fish.
No, don't kill me, man.
I fought for this fish.
Sure.
Don't say sure, now it doesn't feel like a prize. Dang it. So obviously I decided to return the fish and took a mermaid to continue my voyage. Though much to my surprise, these fishermen decided to spare me a visit once again. Since I had nothing of value on my boat, I decided to go for a diplomatic approach. I mean, if they wanted to sink me again, I could simply scuttle my boat onto a new server, but this is why I learned that these guys were not fishermen per se, they were commendation hunters. Since I seemed friendly enough, they wanted me to help them get some commendations that require an enemy player's cooperation. So obviously, I began bargaining for my allegiance. I feel like there was a pineapple in there. Gamers, there was no pineapple in there, but that didn't stop them from giving me one as a sign of good faith. Now, as I mentioned earlier, commendations are basically like in-game achievements. Some of them give you titles or cosmetics, but most of them really are just a bunch of busy work. For this commendation, the two of them needed to hang off the side of an enemy player's vessel while it was sailing, so in return for me not blunderbombing them off my vessel, they agreed to watch my boat while I was busy collecting the last piece of my map. To finish that commendation, they needed to spend a cumulative 15 minutes or something hiding on my ship, so I got to complete my entire voyage with the two of them keeping me company. One of them even entered the vault with me, making the most painful part of this quest an absolute breeze, because moving all this treasure on your own can be a bit of a pain in the butt. So with a final gold hoarder voyage complete, what rating am I going to give them? Well, for me personally, X marks the spot and riddles just don't tickle the part of my brain that I need to have tickled. I find them kind of tedious and often lose patience, which is why I have opted to only do the small island version of all these quests and none in the roar. But I cannot deny that this is part of the quintessential pirate fantasy, and the way that Rare executed it here is actually quite fantastic. Taking off my rose-tinted glasses, the only problem I have with their pinnacle voyage, the Vault of the Ancients, is that it actually doesn't net you anywhere near as much money as you'd think, because they mostly shower you in a bunch of low-value items. That, plus it being very not solo player friendly because of how many items need to be moved, bumps it down to a still very solid A tier. But now we need to talk about the real hoarders of Sea of Thieves, loot stackers. Loot stacking is a practice in SOT whereby players just want to accumulate as many items as possible and then arrange them decoratively on their ship. Most of the time, the point isn't even to necessarily make a lot of money from these items, but to just get a cool screenshot to put it on their socials. But obviously, the more valuable the stack, the more clout you can get, and as such, many a stacker decides to opt for the most repeatable endgame content on the high seas. The Fort of the Damned. Unlike regular world events, this fort is literally one voyage away from being spawned and does not replace naturally spawning events. And since pirate legends can spam this voyage, they can collect as many RGB skulls as they need to fulfill their stacking desire. But before I got to try that stacking thing out for myself, I had to accommodate my guests.
Hey Cliff.
Yeah.
You know the dart gun, the blow gun?
Yeah.
Would you mind shooting me with an explosive dart, please? 1 time?
You what? You want me to shoot you? Yeah, these commendation hunters are all sorts of weird. Apparently there was a commendation for putting out an explosive dart before it explodes, and achieving that is a lot easier when you know the dart is coming. These guys were definitely taking full advantage of my cooperation to get as many commendations done as possible, but in turn, I would get to put them to work and help me stack the Fort of the Damned. Though allow me to be entirely transparent right now, gamers, completing the event is not actually the difficult part. The challenge is fending off all the opposing players trying to steal it from you. Just like any other world event, the FOTD of the Damned is also marked with a giant cloud in the sky, and if people catch you doing that for an extended period of time, it becomes obvious that you are stacking large amounts of high-value treasure.
We got a sloop incoming from the north.
Got you.
Northwest, actually.
Ooh, there's a brigantine in the back as well. Server's waking up. Yep, this is the sort of thing you are going to have to expect as a loot stacker, though it gets especially annoying when next to a player ship, the game decides to also spawn a skelly ship just to make things extra difficult. Though considering we fought them 2 ships versus 1, I guess it makes sense. With them not only defeated but befriended, we now had to move on to the most tedious part of stacking, moving the treasure. I think you will notice a common theme here. The only saving grace was that, with our strength in numbers, defending the loot became rather trivial.
We just wanted to team with you. What the hell?
Unfortunately,
There's
we
no need for
don't.
that.
Whoa, that was a nice shot. Holy crap.
Unfortunately, you don't. Hey, thank you.
We had a lot of very cool people on the server. Unfortunately for them, more pirates in an alliance also means more chances to be stabbed in the back, and the bigger the loot stack, the bigger the temptation. Now, in this whole process, I did try to give the whole commendation hunting thing a shot, but I feel like there's somebody a lot more experienced I'd rather ask for his rating.
If you don't want to do the same thing the whole time, then it's pretty fun. I'll give it a solid B, I think.
B tier? Alright. Well, according to the expert, the great variety of activities warrants a B tier for commendation hunting. But what about loot stacking? While you can make the argument that this is also a varied activity because you can stack all sorts of different loot and you also often have to fend off other pirates, personally, I find the prospect of grinding out the same PvE activity on repeat extremely mind-numbing. I have participated in a few different stacks in my time playing Sea of Thieves, none of which would have been possible without my friends, because A, I'm not good at PvP and need their help protecting the stack, but more importantly, B, I would lose my mind grinding PvE like that on my own. And because the main purpose of doing that is for personal satisfaction, Twitter clout, or more gold than is reasonable to own, loot stacking is going into the D tier. It's simply way too repetitive. Now, if that whole section of the video was too social for your liking, allow me to introduce you to our next playstyle. Tucking. Tucking in Sea of Thieves means you are hiding on a ship or point of interest with the intention of stealing something from other players. The game offers you a variety of hiding emotes that hide your name tag, and many engaging in this activity also like to dress their characters in a way that makes them feel like they are more difficult to spot. The usual way to find somebody to tuck on is by spamming the most basic gold hoarder voyage to dive onto a new server, because it is the fastest quest you can complete. But sometimes you are lucky and wake up on a server offering you a Fort of the Damned. Time to find out what it's like to be the one fighting to steal it rather than trying to complete it. The essence of tucking is making sure you are always prepared, so get your overheal going by eating some cooked food, stuff your pockets to the brim with supplies, and go out to find your vessel of choice, the humble rowboat. I will be the first to admit that being a tucker is incredibly tedious by virtue of having to row or swim to your target, but trust me when I say that, it will get even worse. For now, as I approached the fort, I noticed that I was not the only one interested in this hit. A 2-ship alliance was on its way to take on the brigantine currently completing the FOTD, which honestly was an absolute jackpot for me. The more chaos there is, the more likely it is for me to get away. I decide to let them beef it out without intervention, because once you reveal yourself as a tucker, everyone around you is going to be on high alert. Not to mention that my respawn point was very far away. Once I heard that the fort was completed and the action had died down, I sprinted on over to the vault just to find that it wasn't opened. It appeared as though one of these crews had taken the key and fled rather than opening the gate, which to me meant that I was now in for the long game. Okay, I know I said the essence of tucking is being prepared, but really, it's being extremely patient. More often than not, you are spending hours of your life waiting for people to complete content that you could do yourself in a fraction of the time, because it's funny. Tucking is really just a streamer playstyle, because while they AFK waiting for things to happen, they can talk to chat and collect donations. For me, who's currently not streaming, this was extremely boring. When the brigantine finally made way towards the fort once again, I decided to change my hiding location, not only because that spot is fairly well known, but also because I wanted to have a direct line of sight to the gate entrance. They decide to spin the block for now to make sure nobody, i.e. me, was hiding on the fort, but none of their scouting pirates managed to find me. Unfortunately for them, they took so incredibly long to fleece the fort that one of the sloops had finally caught up to them. In an absolute Hail Mary of a play, the sloop managed to demast, board, and sink the brigantine in as little as a minute once they got their hands on them. Being down but not out, the brigantine crew decide to abandon their vessel and hold down the fort, which is when this happened. I got hit by a bloody straw. There's no shot that just happened. Yep, one lucky blunderbuss pellet just hit me in my hiding spot, and it was due to sheer dumb luck that nobody saw me break my hide. But believe it or not, shortly after that, something even crazier happened. I got AFK kicked. Words cannot describe how much I want to put this playstyle into the F tier. I mean, seriously, you spend more time not playing the game than actually playing it. You engage in some of the most tedious activities known to man, and most of the kinds of pirates that let you get away with a tuck are so new to Sea of Thieves that you could probably just beat them outright in PvP with a single cannonball, your hand tied behind your back, and your monitor turned off. Like, no joke, you could run the fattest pirate in the game with the flashiest outfit from the store, and these players would still not see you because your nameplate is gone. But I'd be remiss to not also highlight the fact that there are some redeeming factors. There is a certain level of excitement that comes with trying to hide in plain sight, and when you do succeed and actually steal the treasure, the dopamine hit is absolutely insane. But is it worth sitting in the same spot for hours on end while waiting for a swabby to do something you could complete in 15 minutes? If you're a streamer, yeah, absolutely. For most other people, absolutely not. And that's why tucking goes into the D tier. So far, everything we have done was as a solo player, but what if we don't want to play solo? Well, my friends, that's where the next playstyle is going to take us. Welcome to Open Crew. Quite possibly the worst way to experience the game, Open Crew allows you to matchmake with other random pirates all across the planet. Now, the fun thing about Open Crew is that you never know what you get. In this case, I loaded onto a galleon that was fending off 2 other sloops who were in contention to get a Fort of Fortune. Nobody was using microphones, but considering that I am playing on EU, I was happy there was any communication at all. A staple of Open Crew gameplay is that nobody really wants to do anything productive. You think people are going to help you adjust the sails to catch a boat? They would if they weren't so busy staring down said boat while standing at the front of the ship. But that doesn't stop them from expecting you to do the thing that they have no intention of touching, because in the mind of the average player, they are the heroes, and that's how they will carry this bunch of morons to victory. Here's a rule of thumb for you if you're trying to adopt the persona of the average Open Crew gamer. Anyone who has fewer hours in the game than you is an absolute noob and has no right to tell you what to do, and anyone with more hours in the game is a no-life basement dweller that needs to touch grass. Not to say that this was the attitude of my own crew, they were actually pretty chill, but the whole I want to do the fun thing energy was very apparent. The problem is that the boring part of the game is usually what keeps you alive. We were extremely lucky that whoever it was that kegged us had offed themselves in the process, because let's be real, the guy AFKing on the boat was not gonna help me fight them off. In fact, Dude disconnected shortly after, making us a 3-man galleon. Which wasn't very surprising to me. Unlike the loot that the other guys began bringing onto our galleon, this was a shock to me because the entire vault was filled to the brim with Ashen Athena chests instead of the usual assortment of loot you get from a Fort of Fortune. Turns out I recorded this bit during some kind of event I was not aware of. Either way, the stakes were suddenly raised. Having high-value treasure was great, but would do nothing for us without the supplies to actually defend them. Obviously, nobody on my crew felt like doing the dirty work, so it was me who went around trying to collect at least a few extra cannonballs. But still, our supply situation was looking abysmal. Now, we did get a replacement pirate as we arrived at Reaper's hideout, which was just as well, because suddenly we had to fend off not 1, but 2 sloops trying to take our treasure. The first sloop was not too much of a problem thanks to my masterful broadside maneuver, and the fact that these guys were so close to our boat that we could easily hop on and off to tend to our own ship. The problem was the second boat, because the primal gamer instinct hit literally the entirety of my crew, so they all left to go board it, whilst we were being lit up by the first crew using stationary cannons. All it took at this point was a bone caller, lots of fire, and a bunch of lag to kill the only defender on board and sink our ship. This is why Open Crew is easily the worst way to play the game. You know why your friends bucket the boat, adjust the sails, and raise the anchor? Because if they don't do it, you'll give them a bunch of shit for it. But there is no such social pressure in an environment where people can just leave your crew and never see you again. You are literally playing a worse version of Sea of Thieves if you are playing Open Crew. Most content creators for this game have a Discord with dedicated voice and text chats where you can find other pirates to team up with, and I believe even the official Sea of Thieves Discord offers that service. You are so much better off doing any of those things over using Open Crew. As for me, I'd literally rather play the game on my own than subject myself to this playstyle. Open Crew easily ends up in the F tier. We are closing in on the finish line, fellow pirates. It's time to talk about the only endgame faction in Sea of Thieves, Athenas Fortune. What makes it an endgame faction? The fact that you need to reach rank 50 with at least 3 other factions before you can get access to it. And what do you get for your trouble? These bad boys. Remember the voyage I highlighted during the stacking portion of our video? The one that gives you the RGB skull? Yep, that's an Athena voyage. But when it comes to Athena's Fortune as a playstyle, really, there's only one voyage. Alright, I'll be real, chat room. Like, the only thing worth doing in this entire catalog is Legend of the Veil. Like, there are other voyages, don't get me wrong, but that's like, you don't get that to level up Athena. You don't even get Athena reputation for it. That's right, every single Athena voyage that isn't Legend of the Veil either gives you a piece of treasure that does not even belong to this company, or is a colossal waste of time compared to just doing, well, Legend of the Veil. I'm not going to show you those voyages for the same reason why I have not highlighted the Phantom Fleet voyage from the Order of Souls at the very beginning. Nobody does it because it isn't worth doing. While that sounds like a bit of a bummer, what helps is the fact that Legend of the Veil is quite possibly one of the, if not the best voyage in the entire game. Not only does it function as a pinnacle voyage like Lost Shipments, whereby it gives you an instant rank 5 to your emissary upon completion, the quest itself is also just a ton of fun with a massive spectacle at the end. The only downside to pretty much all things Athena, you have to listen to the Lord of Yapping. That green son of a gun that keeps inviting himself onto my vessel does that really annoying thing in video game narratives where he projects his aspirations onto the player. Basically, he's telling you in plain text, you have to do this thing because it is the right thing to do, completely ignoring your own aspirations, and I mean, the Reapers are right there, buddy. Either way, while only having 3 objectives, the Legend of the Veil actually has 4 different modules. That means you can get a different combination of quests every time you plop it down, and the real Pirate Legend experience is re-rolling the quest every time you get suds. Don't ask, because trust me, you don't want to do that one. Our first module was the Ship Graveyard. Marked with a sunken white vessel and a few birds, this module is going to task you with finding a key, and it's hidden amongst one of the many ships that have sunk here. You'll be able to find an absolute plethora of interactable objects, some of which are going to hide treasure, and one of which is going to give you the key. You're going to need that key to open the door to the captain's quarters of one of the sunken vessels to give you access to a chest holding the first Veilstone. And because we are talking about the quest designed by Rare, of course we're going to need 3 of them. Only after completing the first objective and finding the first Veilstone, the Yapping Lord is going to return to your vessel to send you towards your next objective. This is the part where you get extremely frustrated over the devs not implementing a skip dialogue option for quests you have already completed before, whilst also praying to any god that will hear you that you don't get suds. And thankfully for me, I didn't. My next destination was Crescent Isle, where I was to meet yet another lore relevant character that most of us are going to struggle to give 2 hoots about. I talk a lot of trash about the narrative of this quest because in my opinion, Sea of Thieves is at its strongest when the narrative takes a backseat and allows for players to make their own stories, to experience their own adventure, but the fact that this unskippable dialogue mess of a story constantly gets in the way of you doing that is extremely frustrating, because mechanically it is one of the strongest pieces of content this game has to offer. And how much of a mess this narrative really is only becomes apparent when I arrived at Crescent Isle and dug up a Reaper skeleton to help me with this Athena voyage to, and I quote, save the Sea of Thieves, which is not exactly in line with what the Reapers would usually do. Either way, once Belle is done bestowing exposition upon us, we are given a magical lantern that reveals the location of ghostly pillars via green beacons in the sky. Find the pillars to light the magical braziers with your magical fire until eventually all braziers are lit and you have to fight a few waves of phantoms. Once defeated, claim your Veilstone and other assorted treasure, bring it back to your ship with the help of Reaper skeletons that are definitely down to help the pirate lord, and get ready for module number 3. Now, the third module of this voyage will always be the same, so once you have come this far, you no longer have to be afraid of suds. This module is impossible to miss. Just sail towards that giant green tornado at the edge of the map and get ready for the most epic finale to any voyage in this game, because you, my friend, are about to lay siege to a fortress. Unfortunately, this video is not going to be able to do justice to just how cool it feels to play this quest. The vibe, the sound design, the voice acting, the combat encounter, it all comes together so incredibly perfectly that all the parts leading up to this were absolutely worth it. I mean, don't get me wrong, the ship graveyard is fun, and the whole spooky phantom portion is fine in its own right, but this is the grand finale. Like seriously, try to do this voyage and not feel like a complete badass when you see the fortress crumble in front of your very eyes in response to your cannon shots. It is the most epic thing you can do in this game, and it doesn't hurt that the rewards are absolutely worth your time. For this voyage alone, I would love to put Athena's Fortune into the S tier, but we have to deduct a few points. The fact that it's the only viable quest for this entire faction, the fact that the cosmetics you get from them are criminally mid, and the fact that the devs decide to put unskippable dialogue into a quest that is meant to be repeated hundreds of times should be an outright felony. So with all of that in mind, Athena's Fortune gets a very strong B tier. Now, some of you might be wondering, wait, why is the video not over? What could possibly follow up on the only endgame faction in Sea of Thieves? Well, fellow pirates, there's an official endgame, and then there is the real endgame. Ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary homies, I saved the best for last. If you want a near-endless, repetitive, mind-numbing grind that most players are not insane enough to even think about starting, then allow me to introduce you to the Hunter's Call. That's right, when you have done everything else, there's still fishing. And with it comes one of the most insane grinds in the entire game, the grind for the title Legendary Hunter of the Sea of Thieves, which requires completion of almost every single one of the available Hunter's Call commendations, including some that are literal RNG. Forget all these voyages, the only thing that matters is fish. Now, what am I going to rate a faction whose entire justification for existing is providing a soul-crushing grind for the mere purpose of showing off a title that expresses how little sunlight has graced your skin in the last decade? Well, my own Hunter's Call videos are some of the most popular episodes I ever uploaded, so they're obviously going to the S tier. Here's the complete tier list for all of you to marvel upon and discuss in the comment section. Am I out of pocket with my assessments? Did I miss a playstyle or two that you really care about? Leave your comments right below the like button. But until then, thank you everybody so much for watching. I hope you guys have a day filled with riches on the sea. And until next time, peace.